few years ago, during what was probably the darkest period in my life, I worked overnights at a local Walmart. 6 days a week, I would spend 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. stocking anything from fishing lures to makeup. I've never been in a more depressing environment. Everyone was really apathetic and too caught up in their own depressing lives to care about anything or anyone else. This included the managers. Walmarts have a generally weird vibe to them anyway, but this was a 24-hour supercenter in rural West Virginia, so you can imagine the characters, meth and opioid addicts mostly, that would show up throughout the night. We had no security guards, and from what I've come to understand, a lot of the cameras, especially in the parking lot, haven't worked properly in a while. Being one of the few young female overnight stalkers, I encountered my fair share of unwanted advances, but the one who took the cake was the guy who would show up every time I went outside for a smoke break, regardless of the time. 2 a.m., 4 a.m., 6 a.m., it didn't matter. Dude would appear around the corner and try to strike up a conversation within seconds of me stepping outside. It didn't matter what entrance I used, and there were 3. At first I assumed he worked there. Why else would anyone voluntarily lurk around a shitty Walmart all hours of the night? Pretty much everyone on that shift smoked during their 2 nightly 15-minute breaks, so it wasn't out of the question to think he was doing the same. Maybe the timing was just a coincidence, but no, I came to find out he didn't work there, even though he often wore a dark blue t-shirt, just like an overnight employee. I stopped going outside alone and would only venture outside with one of my guy friends, particularly one I've been friends with since middle school. Even their presence didn't deter him, and it kind of became a store-wide joke. I was weirded out, but not alarmed, until he started getting a little more aggressive. He'd ask me if I was seeing anyone, and would ask me out pretty much any chance he got. I was playing GTA 5 at the time, so I came up with a story about my scary long-distance boyfriend, Trevor, from North Carolina. Even then, he wasn't fazed. I was done feigning politeness. One night, when my main guy friend had called in sick, and the others were working on something on the opposite side of the store, I went outside with 2 older women in my area. After a few minutes, they went inside, and just as I was about to follow them, Walmart Creeper suddenly appeared. Pretty sure he'd been waiting around the corner, and insisted on me going to his car with him to see something, taking my hand in his. Not hard, but I was still pissed he'd touched me. I'm a generally angry person anyway, so I lost my shit, ripped my hand away, and sprinted inside. I reported him to the head manager that night, and found out he had a cousin who worked in the back unloading trucks. Apparently, he liked to hang out with his cousin at work. The cousin apologized profusely and said he talked to him, but the management was a whole other level of shitty and didn't even say anything to the creeper, let alone ban him from the premises. I ended up quitting, specifically because of the horrible management, although it was over an entirely different situation. I found out through a friend that the guy who was still hanging out at the store every night and was still doing his creepy thing with other women tried like hell to learn my name and where I lived. He was apparently asking around about me for weeks after I left, before disappearing himself. I can't help but keep thinking about how those parking lot cameras haven't worked in such a long time, and if anyone would have cared enough to notice if I just disappeared on one of those long, tiring work nights. This happened when I was around 5 to 6 years old, but I remember everything like it happened yesterday. We had gone to a funeral of my mom's cousin to another town a couple hours out. We got to the house, and my mom went to see her aunt to give her condolences, and I followed, holding her hand. I guess during the hugging and crying, my mom let go of my hand, so I started looking for her hand, but not really looking up, just keeping my hand out for her to grab it while calling her. There were a lot of people, and the house was small, so I only could see people standing around me. A couple minutes later, I found her, or so I thought, because she took my hand and started walking towards the door to leave. I thought to myself as I was putting on my shoes, wow, we came such a long drive to be here for 5 minutes, which led me to look up at the lady holding my hand, and I instantly realized it wasn't my mom. They had both been wearing black coats, and I said, "Oh, you're not my mom," and snatched my hand back and ran towards the room I had lost my mom in. Honestly, at that age, I left it at that and just thought, oh, how funny, I held the wrong lady's hand while thinking it was my mom. I thought about this for almost 2 decades until one day it just hit me. That lady was taking me away. She knew I wasn't her daughter, and she took my hand and was leaving the house with me. If I hadn't looked up and had actually made it out the door, who knows what would have happened. It was creepy because she didn't say a word to me from beginning to end. And to this day, I have no idea who it was. But, creepy lady who tried to steal me during a funeral, please, let's not meet again. I work at a popular shoe store in a mall. The city is a bit sketchy, and the mall doesn't get a lot of funding, so it's very small. And most of the people that come in the store are bored teenagers. Since we mainly sell popular name brand shoes, Jordan, Nike, Adidas mostly, we get some die-hard sneakerheads every now and then. I'm used to the usual comments like, "Your brother must have taught you about shoes, huh?" And people asking for a male employee to help them instead. I guess people aren't used to girls liking shoes too. Anyway, when this guy came in with his kid, we were a little busy. The first thing he said to me was,
"Wow, they let girls do this kind of work now?"
Okay. Didn't really know what he meant by that, but whatever. I asked him what kind of shoes he was looking for, if I could help him find a size, the usual. He was looking for shoes for his son, who was probably around 5 or 6, and seemed to be off in his own world. The dad had to be in his late 30s at least. He asked me for a couple of different colors of one shoe, and I told him I'd just be a second, grabbing them from the back. He responded,
"That's all right, sweetheart. Take your time."
I was raised in the South, so I didn't really think too much about the sweetheart thing, since, especially older men there, tend to call every girl sweetheart. But I don't live there anymore, and he definitely didn't have a southern accent. I just figured he was kind of a weird dude, and decided to help him find what he needed as quickly as possible so he would leave. When I came back out with the shoe boxes and tried to hand them to the guy, he put his hands over mine instead of just taking the boxes.
"Wow, you're beautiful,"
he said.
"Just gorgeous."
I smiled politely, not wanting to be rude, and said, "Thank you. Here are the colors that you were looking for." And I pushed the boxes towards him so he'd have to hold them.
"What's your name, honey?"
he asked. That's when I started to feel more and more creeped out. I'm underage, and I've often been told I look far younger than I actually am. I really don't know why this dude was hitting on me. He was older than my dad. I told him my first name, pointing to my name tag. "If you need any more help, just ask any one of the associates," I said, half smiling. I quickly left to help other customers. While I was helping a group of people that came in, he whistled at me from the other side of the store. I glanced at him for a second, but it was very obvious that I was talking to someone else, and my other coworkers were closer to him. He walked over, saying,
"Hey, hun, you disappeared on me."
He asked for a different shoe, randomly selecting it from the wall. He pointed at his son.
He said he wanted this one now. He can be really picky about his shoes. I swear, kids, right?
He laughed. I looked over at the kid, who really didn't seem to be interested in the shoes at all. He was just playing with a toy. The dad did this a few times with different shoes, though we do sell out of some sizes, and we didn't have the size he needed for some of the shoes. He still kept picking out new shoes, even if we had the size, saying that his kid asked for them. When I brought one of the pairs out, he asked,
"How old are you, gorgeous?"
16, I answered, picking up the shoe boxes he wasn't buying.
"What? 16? Are you kidding me?"
He asked. I honestly looked about 4 years younger than that. I don't know why he was so surprised.
"You're lying. 16? Really?"
Yep, I'm 16 years old, I responded. I went back into the back room to put the boxes away and asked my coworkers to help the guy out over the mics we wear. They responded that he wouldn't talk to them. He kept waiting for me to come back out. I noticed that we had one of the shoes he asked for, in the same size, tucked away where I didn't see it before, hoping this would get him to buy the shoe and leave. I brought it out, saying, "I found one last pair in his size. It's our last one." He jumped up, saying,
"Oh my God, I could kiss you."
and opened his arms like he wanted a hug. I just stepped away, saying that one of the associates could help him once he was ready to check out. He said,
"You're getting a really big tip today."
He just kind of sat there with his kid for a while, repeating that every time I walked by. He also asked when my shift was over, but I told him I was covering for someone else and didn't know. When he finally did check out, he came up to me, saying,
"Here, just take this."
and shoving 2 crumpled up $5 bills at me. I told him I couldn't accept it, but he just said,
"Yes, you can. Just take it."
He shoved it into my hands and left. I joked with my coworkers about how creepy he was, and my shift went back to normal for a while. But then I noticed him walking outside of the store again, looking in. I immediately went to the back room and asked my coworkers to tell me when he left. He paced back and forth in the front of the store for 4 more hours, and I didn't see his kid with him at all. He was just looking in, not saying anything. If I was out on the floor, my coworkers would tell me over the mic that he was coming back, and I'd go into the back room. When my shift was over, I left through the employee-only exit, a secluded hallway he couldn't get into. I don't know how much longer he paced in front of the store after I left. So, super creepy customer, let's not meet again. Hi friends, I hope you're staying safe. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. It would really mean a lot to me. Thank you for listening. Sweet dreams.